Oh, hello there! Welcome to Getting Tasty, live in studio, where today we're going to be making chicken noodle soup. Of course, with a soda on the side. Now the first thing you need to do is get your ingredients. And today we'll be working with some great ingredients. We have chicken, small potatoes, previously fresh green and red bell pepper. We have some onions that are green. We have carrots and celery, and a big onion just for extra good measure. You'll notice today we are using the Instapot. And in our Instapot, we'd like to start by getting these onions going with some celery and carrots to build up a layer of flavor. So we will start by going to the saute mode. There we go. And I'm going to put in a slice of butter. Getting tasty already. Let's start by rinsing our carrots. And slicing them up real nice. There are many ways to cut carrots. I like the circular option. Really? One moment, please. And we're back! Getting tasty already. Again, there's many ways to cut carrots, but we'd like to start by making them round. That's my preferred method, and you don't really need to go any smaller than that, unless you have big carrots, in which case you could cut them in half and then do maybe a little more like a half crescent circle even. But for today, we're going to do just regular circles. It's important to note that butter has a very low smoke point. This means it's very important that we don't let it get too hot in there. So I'm going to start by putting in these carrots. And then we're going to add in some more onion, and then we're going to add more carrots, and we're just going to keep it going, and that'll be the basis for our soup today. Now, if you're fortunate like we are, we have a compost bin, so these leftovers are going to turn into more produce in the future. So I don't mind cutting the ends off. You don't really have to, you can definitely cook with them. But today we're just going to get rid of these little ugly bits so we can have a pretty looking soup. Into the compost bin. These end pieces are great, but I don't recommend eating them when you find it in your soup. You could even remove them, but I just like to let them marinate in the entire time. Now these green pieces are perfect for topping your soup, so we're going to set those ones aside. Ooh, it's looking good already. My preference is to use a wooden spoon. There we go. I don't want them to get too hot, so I'm going to turn off the heat for a minute. Like I said, the butter will start smoking if we're not careful. Next up, let's layer in some celery. Celery has an amazing flavor, and when you add it, it gets a nice crunch and just gives more texture to your soup. Again, we're going to rinse off our celery. Perfection already. I am so excited. Celery is one of the best flavors you can have. And while normally I'd recommend not eating these bits, but for the cats now. I mean, I don't mind eating off the ground. Nolan, would you like a bite? He says no to celery. Now the next thing you can do with your celery is give it a very nice thin, see these are a little too thick, I wouldn't want to put a whole slice of these in, so what you'll want to do is cut them right down the middle. Perfect. And we're going to do that one more time on the other slice. Very nice. And then you could go thinner if you'd like, but for me this is just the perfect, nice bite-sized piece that's going to hold up really nicely in a soup. Perfection. And just a couple bites of meat. I'm going to give that a little twist into the butter. Beautiful. It's still very hot in there, so they're still cooking, but I didn't want to add any more heat, so that way we wouldn't go over that smoke point of the butter. Otherwise you get that kind of burnt flavor that you have on a grilled cheese if you use butter on the outside. It can go for a little too long, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but there's better ways. There are better ways, I tell you. Next up, the onion. Now this onion needs to be peeled, so just give me a second while I peel that off. Come on over here. Into the compost bin. Okay, and we're back on over here where we're going to cut off these ends right there. And we're going to cut off the end right here. Perfect. In fact, as my grandma Cambridge used to say, just put the compost bin closer to the... Yeah. Perfect. All right. We're just going to take off this outside layer. And now you can see my eyes are starting to water. And we're getting a beautiful onion underneath here. Next, I'd like to introduce you to a thing I like to call onion rings. It's where you take the ring of the onion and you deep fry it. Now we won't be doing that today, but I plan to save part of this onion for onion rings tomorrow. So I'm going to take the biggest section of the onion, because those are going to be the best pieces, and only use the small bits for today's cooking. Be very careful when cutting onion. You'll notice I'm making very thick onion sliced cuts because I want those onion rings to be nice and thick. Perfect. And that is wonderful. Amazing. Okay, now I'm going to grab a Tupperware container to save some of this leftover onion. And yes, my eyes are absolutely watering right now. There we go. Cheerio, mate. We've got it. And we're going to get the center popped right out of there. You can see nice onions left over. We're going to do the same to the rest of these. And any that break, it's not a big deal. I mean, there's plenty of onion left here. So we're just going to save that. And we're going to pop these out. You'll notice this one has the double section on it. So this is perfect for what we're doing. But look at this. This onion ring has a like slice going through the middle. And like that could be a very tasty onion ring. I'm going to save that just to try it out. Next up, we have there, another onion ring. And last but not least, I think we're just going to take the rest of these and use them in our soup today. So that was perfect. Go ahead and save that and set that in the fridge for tomorrow. Almost. Almost perfect. This section doesn't just look as appetizing, so I think I'll cut that one off. Now, there is many tricks to cutting onion, but I'm not the best onion cutter. What I like to do is I start here, and I just work my way around, getting nice slices on each of these rings, and that does a decent job. There's definitely a faster, easier approach, but this is what works for me. What works for you might be a little different. Just kind of play it by ear until you get good at cutting onion too. Now, I think it's about time that we start heating up our sautéing pan again here on the Instant Pot. So we'll hit that button. There it goes. And now we're going to get that heat turned right back up so we can get these onions in there and cooking, browning, turning into some very tasty caramelization. It's going to be very delicious and really going to overall change the way you enjoy soup. Now these onions, they're going to cook for a while, so I anticipate they're not going to be nearly as strong, nor they're also going to shrivel up a little bit. So leaving them a little bit bigger isn't a bad thing here. There we go. Just a few more sections left. We're going to leave those off to the side for now, and we're going to go ahead and scoop these all in. Wonderful. You may be asking, why are we saving some additional onion? Well, there's a very good reason. You might have noticed we have these potatoes. And these potatoes are going to be roasted and served alongside our soup. It's going to add a very nice flavor, just a nice way to contrast our soup. In fact, you might even consider pouring the soup over your potatoes, or even putting the potatoes into your soup, but that's personal preference. So we'll go ahead and save these. I'm going to give this a nice stir. Let those begin to brown. Those are going to be very, very nice. Very, very nice. And I almost forgot we have one more ingredient. I'm going to rinse my hands real quick. And then we're going to be adding in some garlic powder. Now this garlic powder is not my ideal, but we're currently in a quarantine, so going to the store wasn't an option to buy fresh garlic. So this will do. Perfect. I I find that the garlic powder can burn very quickly, so it's nice to get it mixed around evenly and not just clumping and burning in one section. There's two ways to cook your onions. The first way is to wait until they're slightly opaque and call that good. But for me, I like a caramelization that's a deep brown. So I plan to take these and keep rotating them every couple minutes until I get that very nice browning on both sides. You can start to see that forming there. Very nice. Now the next thing we're going to do is get our chicken stock and our chicken broth ready. Now I'm using today a pre-made chicken broth because I don't have any leftover chicken bones and there's no bones in the chicken I'm using today. But you could perhaps make your own chicken broth, simply by cooking them, and even the Instant Pot is a great way to make broth. Plenty of recipes online. Highly recommend you look into it if that's something you're interested in. But today we're taking the easy method and starting with a stock that you can buy at the store. So with that, we're going to move on to our chicken while we wait for these to brown a little bit more. Now this is more than enough chicken for the chicken noodle soup we're going to be doing. And so we're going to be making noodles to go with the noodles, and then these chicken, I think we're going to use maybe 2 or 3 breasts. And so I think I'm going to choose kind of a smaller breast so I can get it more evenly, easier to cook. And we're also going to be cooking these on the cast iron skillet, which is going to give us kind of a taste of the outdoors almost, because I've actually used this cast iron skillet on a campfire. So it's got a little bit of memories there, but also just flavor that's built up over time. Cast iron is a great way to go. The other option that I would have considered had I not had cast iron available would have been to cook in the oven under the broiler. The broiler is another amazing way. It's like cooking on a stove or a grill outside. Highly recommend you consider broiling your meat, steaks, etc. So we're going to start with these, and we're going to use a very basic rub. We have a chicken rub plus a little bit of salt and pepper, which will help build us a nice crust on the chicken, and that's also going to be very good. Now the other thing we're going to do with our chicken today is we're going to use it at the end of our soup. So rather than putting it in entirely throughout, we're going to have a little bit of that, but we actually want to just layer it on top, which is going to really allow that chicken to have all that flavor we've baked into it, kind of distinguish itself and add on top of the flavor of its soup. So we're going to have 2 counterparts there. And so any little bits of chicken I want to throw into the soup, I will, but the big slices, those are going to be saved as a layering on top of our soup. It'll be very delicious. Very, very delicious. Just to make it less messy, I'm going to use this pan to season my soup. My chicken. And it seems like it's about time for another stir in here. I almost forgot. Thank you so much, my lovely assistant. We need peppers. Peppers are very important to add more spice and flavor, and they're definitely not a traditional addition to your chicken noodle soup. So if you don't want to do this step, you don't have to. But we like to add a little bit more flavor, a little bit southwestern seasoning spice, and oh, that's so nice. So these are frozen and have a little bit of water on them. So oftentimes that's not great, but in here it's very dry, so I'm not super worried about the extra moisture. It's going to cook off really quick. There we go. Right. We'll give that a good old stir. And as I said, there's a lot of moisture in there, so you can see almost instantly it's created a layer of water on the bottom, which is preventing it from burning, but also causing it to slow the browning process on those onions. So I'm very glad to have seen some of the onions have already started to brown, but we're going to continue that until we get a nice caramelization on the outside of all of the onion. Beautiful. You'll notice my drinking cup today is slightly deformed. I got it in Paris. It's very, very fancy, and that's what they do there. They deform their cups from heat, I guess. I don't know. It's good, though. It's very good. A very classic way to drink your sodas out of a deformed glass. Now we're working with raw meat, so it's very important that you take extra precautions, washing your hands, making sure the surfaces aren't intermixing with vegetables like these onions, which we'll intend to be using afterward. So I don't want to use the cutting board. If I do, I'll use a different cutting board. And so just making sure you differentiate those two, not mix what you're going to be using afterwards. For instance, I can eat anything off of this board, but once the chicken touches it, it needs to be cooked before we can eat it. So let's go ahead and get started over there with chicken. We're going to do 2 breasts today, perhaps 3, haven't really decided, but we're going to make those up, and then, this looks so good. I think I want to do 3. I'm going to do the smallest I can find, and we'll do those 3. 1, 2, and 3. Beauties, each of them. Now the rest of this we're going to save for another meal on another day. That's the great thing about chicken, is you can use it wherever. So now let's go ahead and get our chicken seasoning. But my hands, they're covered in raw meat. That's not safe, so I'm going to wash my hands with a little bit of soap. If you've ever listened to that radio station, C89.5, they're based in Seattle, and I gotta tell you, they have these wonderful tunes they play on the radio that are 20 seconds long, perfect for washing your hands too, and you get them stuck in your head, you can use that while you're washing your hands. Very, very helpful. Next up, we're gonna start with some basics, some ground pepper, use a little dash of salt, and I think we'll throw in a little bit of garlic for just to add a flavor here and there and there. Beautiful, beautiful. And next up, I do have a chicken rub that I love the flavor. Let me find it there. We go. Where is it hiding? Perhaps. There it is. Roasted garlic and herb. It's a McCormick seasoning. I don't know if there's anything fancy here, but I do love the flavor it has, and it's more hot. Apparently I need to talk louder. My apologies to anyone who wasn't able to hear me at home, but now I am speaking even louder. And yes, this is muy bien, very good. I don't know how to describe it other than that. And I just wanted to take a quick look at the back so we can see we've got some salt, some onions, some spices, including pepper, coriander, parsley, roasted garlic, sunflower oil, paprika, and a bunch of fake stuff that we don't know what it is, but it's chemicals. So we're going to add some of this on top because it is very good, and I do highly recommend it. It has this really lovely flavor, and it's just going to make our stuff taste so much better. So we've got our 3 layers there. We're now going to press that in, flip it over, and do it again. And so I'm going to use one hand for the pressing, one hand for the additional seasoning, and then we should be able to keep things safe around here. So there we go. Very nice. Very nice. And while we're doing that, let's go ahead and start heating up our burner over here. You'll notice we work with fire. Fire is hot. It's fun. It's nice. But it's very important to make sure you don't overheat. It's very easy to cook on fire and be too hot. So there we go. One and done. On to number 2. And then number 3. Beautiful. it has dawned on me that I'm not able to crack the ground pepper, and that's a bit problem. You know what? I have one of these pepper shakers, and while it's not my preference, it will do in this time of need. Beautiful. And again, with the roe. Very magnificent. Very well, very well. Alright, and now, give this a stir. That is looking marvelous. We're getting exactly what we're looking for in that. It's just a heap of vegetables, and I'll give you a quick look at that in a minute after I've washed my hands once again. Oh, that just looks marvelous. Marvelous. Okay, sauteing is off. We've done wonderful in that. That is magnificent. Now with this heating up, we're going to turn it down just a little bit. We're going to let those sit for just a little bit longer because we want that flavor to start to melt in before we start cooking. And I like to give it at least 5 minutes. I know some would go for 30 or 40 or even, 72 hours. I've got some French fries I've been working on for almost 5 days now. Can't wait to taste them. They're in the fridge still, and they're going to be delicious. But so sometimes you want to layer that there over days in time, but today we are in a rush, so we're thinking 5, max 10 minutes, and then we are on to cooking them. So back over here in our pot, you can see we've got this caramelization coming out very nice, keeping it from sticking, scraping the bottom. Very good, very good. And let me show you what that looks like. Check out the beauties. A lot of steam in there, but you can see it is perfection, caramelization, and just amazing. It's what you're gonna want to eat, and that's fabulous. Now, apologies, I probably messed this camera up, but that's okay. We have 2 other cameras, and they will do a fabulous job, and we'll come back to that one in a little bit later. Next up, it is time to move on. One of the features of the Instapot is it doesn't have to be Instapot. In fact, it has a slow pot method, and that is the method we'll be using today. While time is not as much of the essence as getting the flavors together and allowing them to heat up and meld over an hour or 2, we're intending here to build our flavors slowly so we don't boil off the flavor. And so that is why we're going to go to the slow cooker option. There we go. And we're just going to hit start. It's on 4 hours. I don't intend to use it for 4 hours, but hey, if you want to, you can. I'm not going to, but that's up to you. Personal preference, eh? So here we are with our chicken stock. Notice it says it's fat-free. Do not dilute. Okay, that's good. We're going to shake it up nicely and open up. Beautiful. I don't know if I've mentioned this yet, but today we're actually going to be making homemade pasta noodles. You might have noticed out of the corner of your eye we have one of these bad boys, and these are fabulous for cooking pasta. They make it nice thin layers for you, and you can cut them. We've also used it for making elephant ears and other delicacies. It's a great tool to have around the house, although if you don't, you can also use a rolling pin. Does a good job if you get it nice and thin, but it's just not as even nor nearly as thin. So sometimes you're just going to get a thicker noodle, but a thicker noodle is not a bad noodle, it's a tasty noodle. So no shame there, no shame there. Now we're going to give this a stir and add in our last can. There we are. That's looking very nice and decadent. I am getting so hungry right now. I just cannot wait. So next up we have our broth of chicken. This comes in a can, and cans get dusty, so I like to wipe the dust off my can so I'm not eating dust. That a very nice clean topped can. Getting out of the cooker, turning down the heat on the stove because I can feel it is very, very hot. So we'll go down all the way to low. Cast iron holds its heat very well, so you don't really need to keep applying lots and lots of heat to it. As I unscrew this, I recognize that I probably should have shaken the can a little bit more, but that's okay. Very nice. Now, there are lots of uses for cans, but these top pieces, they are scary, they are dangerous, so I'm getting rid of it immediately. And this I can either rinse out and recycle, or I might even use it for something else later on, so I'm going to set it back here for the future. Perfection. Next up, we're going to give it another stir. Very good, very good, very good. We want it down to temperature. And we're going to add in more layers of flavor as we progress. As I mentioned, we're going to add in bits of chicken, not a lot, just bits of chicken. We're also going to add potentially some potatoes. I think my personal preference is always to have more potatoes than less. So I think we'll probably get some of those in a little bit, and that will be well worth the while. But for now, we're going to cover that lid. We're going to make sure it is vent open. We do not want the vent closed here. We're not trying to pressure cook. We're just slow cooking right now. Perfect. Now, we're going to make sure this is nice and hot with a quick little test that I used to use. You get your hand a little wet, and that is a hot pan. Very hot. Also, I like the sound of a good sizzle. So, next, I'd like to give us a little bit of something. I don't want to have too much sticking to the pan, and so you could use butter, but remember what I mentioned about butter earlier, it's going to burn, and we don't want it to burn, so I'm going to grab a little of canola oil. It's like a vegetable oil I have around the house right now. Delicious. So, let me grab that, and then we'll be right back. You might be asking, how much canola oil though? And I just say, grab a big old tablespoon off of your drawer. You don't need to get a measuring spoon. It doesn't need to be exact. All we're doing here is preventing that chicken from sticking as much. It's still going to stick, don't get me wrong, but we just don't want it to be as much lost. So there we go, a little bit more than a tablespoon, and we'll go ahead and let that roll around very nicely. Now, if you like cats as I do, you might have a few cats roaming around. And the best part about cats is they are very curious. They're very curious creatures. So this is a green onion, but he doesn't know. And so if we come around here, letting Nolan sniff. You might not be able to see him there. Maybe if I move my head down. Look at the little Nolan. Oh, nope, is he? Ah, there he is. There's our Nolan. And over here we have Pippi. Maybe. Pippi, can you come up? She says, yes, hi, fans. But she's scared of it, you see. But it's nice. They like to know and be engaged. And so letting your cat smell everything you're doing, just wafting into the noses and the faces. I remember one day I was on an adventure. It was called a shower, and I had a can of soda with me, and it was very, very fun. And so when I drank the soda, I was taking a time, because you drink soda, then you brush your teeth if you're a responsible adult. And my little girl Pippi, she comes up to me, and I didn't mean to, but I accidentally belched a little, because you have soda, it's bubbly. And she is now scared of Pop. She will not go anywhere near a Pepsi, and it is absolutely sad. I feel very bad, a little bit, but it's also very funny. Anyway, but it's nice to enjoy those flavors with her, and she enjoys smelling my teeth, which I don't quite understand, so now she's a little more cautious. Oh, Pippi, can you down please? Down please. Good girl. Ah, very nice. Okay, moving on. We've now got our oil over here, and as I mentioned, I am a fan of cats, and so I have the cat mitten, and you'll notice it opens at the butthole, and so that's fun. So over here, this pan is very hot, so I want to roll it around, but I don't want to burn myself. So there we go. We're going to turn that heat back to medium, and it is time to cook. So I'm going to grab some tongs. beautiful tongs. And we're gonna place these 3 on here, very nice. Evenly spaced first time, absolutely marvelous. Cannot complain. Adding these 2 bits of chicken to the center, because why not? There we go. There we go. Wonderful, wonderful. A lid. I'm a huge proponent of lids. Lids are great because they allow your food to get cooked from the top and the bottom simultaneously. It creates an environment that is safer for cooking and it cooks a little bit faster. Please use a lid. You will thank yourself next door. Next up, as I mentioned, we're going to be doing these potatoes. And once we're done cooking the chicken in the skillet, we're going to use that cast iron pan to cook our potatoes. It's brilliant. It works well. We're going to have to throw them in the oven to finish baking, but it will be great. So what we're going to do next is we're going to create a meld of flavors to put around our potatoes. So imagine some butter, some salt, some pepper, the garlic powder, our onions here, our carrots, more celery, and that's going to be just a really nice dish to have alongside your soup. So this is great. Let's go ahead and get that started. Very nice. 2 done. More to go. We have next our green onion. We're going to get some more of these tops off, save those for later. As I said, those are going to make a great topping. There's so many things you can do with the tops and they just look gorgeous and they're great for plating. So we're going to save those for later. We're going to come in here, make these nice and small, and we're also going to take these 2 pieces and get these back into the crock pot over here. There we go. Very nice. And so these pieces here, those are going to go in with the potatoes, but that's it. Next up, we're going to get some big hunks of carrot. Now these carrot, we want them to be nice, big, fat squares, because these are going to cook for a long time, and you still want them to have a nice bite to them. So we're going to make them maybe 1 to 2 bite-sized pieces, depending on the size of your mouth. And so maybe a 1-biter for if you're like me, I'm a 1-biter type of guy. But if you're a 2-biter type of guy, that's okay. You can cut it in half and that's good. Very nice, very nice. Now, I wish I had more carrot because I am actually a fan of cooked carrot. I never was, and now I am. And now that I am, I wish I had more. But that's okay. So these next ones, we're going to make them more easy, more like a 1-biter for everyone. Carrot is so good, so good. Up here, I still, like I said, I wanted to keep them more square text shapes. So the smaller ones, they're going to be very soft. So if you're into soft potato or carrots, you're going to really enjoy those. I'm not. So these big ones, that's where my mouth is going. And so I'm going to make sure to keep some big ones in here. And we've got a good amount of those, good amount of these. Very, very happy with where we're at right now. Next up, we're going to go to that. But before we go any further, it is time to flip our chicken. You'll notice, woo, it is hot. I might put in a little too much oil. A little too much oil. But that's okay. Oh, that's a beautiful flip. Beautiful. Beautiful. Oh. I couldn't be any happier than I am right now about the way the chicken is looking, and I just want to give you a look. So we're going to grab our camera and get a little bit of close up there. Oh. Very gorgeous, very gorgeous. Look at them all, they all turned out very nice. Apologies for the yellow lighting. It is our light above is a little yellow. But look at them, they are so good. Oh, so good. I love it, I love it. I'm so happy. I was a little concerned it might have been on too long, but it wasn't. So very, very nice there, very, very nice. Moving forward, we're now going to let these go for just a little bit longer, another minute, 2 minutes max. They're really going to brown up quickly, so I'm going to throw it down to low. Like I said, cast iron keeps its heat, so it's still very hot. In fact, we could probably turn cast iron and steal it off at this point, but since we're going to be cooking more on it in a minute, I'm going to leave it where it's at right now. Okay, very nice. Where I'd like to go next is get that chicken put up. It's been sitting out for a little too long. I'd like to get that put up now, so let's go ahead and get some more Tupperware. Or you can use a plastic bag, works as well. Let's see, what do I have? Wonderful. So, you might not know this, but these bags are actually reusable. And so we wash them out and reuse it. You can see this one's been used a few times, but it's clean, ready to be used for the future. So we're going to go ahead and get our chicken in there. And I don't want to use this to get my final chicken out because I'm worried about it having used raw at the beginning and raw in the middle. And so I'm just going to use this one last time on the raw and call that a day. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And, oh, can we get this out of here safely? Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Wonderful. And I'm done with those tongs. Fortunately, I have multiple tongs. If you don't have multiple tongs, you are welcome to, of course, use the same tongs and just clean them. Cleaning as you go is always a recommendation of mine. But for now, we're trying to keep things fast, 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 interesting for you, because we are live today, and that's pretty cool, pretty cool. All right, next up, we are going to close our chicken up. We're going to let it sit in the fridge. We'll come back to that in a few days. Perhaps make chicken strips or any other form of chicken dish. Chicken Alfredo is another favorite of mine. Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Next up, this chicken is probably about done. So we need another place to cut it. I'd like to cut it on a different pan, but don't forget to let it sit for a few minutes. So let's go ahead and grab another cutting board. My cutting board came in a 3-pack, so I have a slightly smaller size, which will be perfect for this. There we go. And we're going to go ahead and move this here. There we go. Next up, let's grab this off. And here you can see, you can see the bottom is looking good as well. Very nice. It could go a little bit longer if you want it to be a little bit browner, but you can see that this one is great on both sides too. Very nice. And very nice here as well. Very, very nice. I apologize, it might be out of focus, but I will prove it to you with my ultra awful camera skills. 2 moments, and here we go with our camera. And now you can see these things are looking fabulous, but they need to sit for a minute. They are not going to be ready for a little bit longer. We need to get that, let them sit. You don't want to cut into them right away. Don't want to have to start dicing them. And so we're going to let those sit. We're going to set them aside. In fact, a thought that came to my head that is crazy but amazing is perhaps we could even cook them further a second time with the potatoes, but that might dry them out. So there's a lot of debate in now on what is the best and worst option, but if we kept them enclosed in a foil container, perhaps we could keep all that moisture in and also add another layer of flavor to the potatoes, which we're also going to be getting right now. So what we're going to do is keep the carrots out. We don't want the carrots to cook. In fact, I'm going to seat them right here, and we're going to move all of this onion and all of this onion into our pan, and we're going to create a nice caramelization before we add our potatoes. Very nice. And we get to use all of that chicken fat that's been grilling there, and we're going to get these very nice, yummy, delicious flavors. I'm very excited, very excited. Okay. And turn that up just a little bit. There we go. And now I'd like to add another bite of celery, so we'll grab another celery stalk here. I'm going to set that aside there. And it's good to keep cleaning, especially celery. It can get a little bit dirty in the middle, on the bottom, so I like to scrape that out with my fingernail. Very good, very good. All right. Next up, I mean, you can really see there is some dirt in there, and so we're just gonna cut that section off. And I mean, as bad as it looks, though, it still tastes very good actually. It's a debate for me on how I want to cut the celery. See, I could go the same method as before, but I could also go a thicker method to complement the size of the potatoes. You notice the size of the carrots, the size of the potatoes, the size of the celery. Get them all in that same size, and we might actually have something going here in terms of a theme. And since we don't really have a theme today, other than the fact that we're cooking chicken noodle soup with a soda on the side, other than that theme, anything else goes. So I think let's go with the large portions with the small potatoes. It's going to be very contrasty. You've got these little itty bitty potatoes, but these giant carrot pieces, these giant celery pieces. I think it's going to look very nice. It's going to look something unique that you're not used to seeing, and I am going to like the way it turns out. So here we go, doing it big, small size. If that makes any sense, you're welcome. I don't know about you, but I think we need one more piece of celery. In fact, 2 pieces, because I want to eat one of them right now. 1 and 2. If you're sitting at home right now and you don't have chicken noodle soup on the stove, I highly recommend you grab some snacks, sit down, relax, enjoy yourself. We're all enjoying these times but we must get through, and food, it must be eaten. And so today I will cut these right about there, and I have myself and my assistant, and we are both ready to eat. This food looks so good. There we go. Celery. You know what goes good with celery? Peanut butter. And if you've ever followed our show before, you know Ducky likes his peanut butter coated in raisins. These onions are already caramelizing. Let's give them a nice turn. Very nice, very nice. And we're going to cut this celery up as well. There we go. Delicious. All right, next up, it is time for the chicken. So there's a very huge debate in my mind right now. As I mentioned, we are just kind of going at this as we're flowing, we're freestyling, and we're figuring it out. And so for me, I'm thinking out loud that these bigger ones have a lot more juice in them. They're gonna have a lot more flavor. And so I'm thinking that we should savor that flavor for later. So right now we're at 22 minutes in our slow cooking pot. I think we should give it a quick stir, see how it's looking in there. And then, oh, it's fabulous. It's absolutely fabulous. It is so good. Very nice, very nice. And so, we want to get some chicken in there, but we don't want to get too much. And so the one thing I'll note here is this smaller piece of chicken. We know for sure that this smaller piece of chicken is going to get tough very quick. So I think what we should do with this one, give it a taste test. We should also dice it up and throw the smaller bits of this one in there. So that way there's just... That way there's just more time for them to soak, become a little more moist and tender. So let's go ahead and do that. Although I suspect at this current moment this chicken is perfect. So let's give it a slice. Oh, yes, I mentioned it was perfect and I wasn't lying. That looks delicious. I am having a hard time now not eating this. I am right now. Oh my gosh. No. I can't help myself. Oh my gosh. Oh. I just want to let you know that it is very important that you taste your food as you cook. That way you can really enjoy and savor the experience and know you are going in the right direction, and we are very much going in the right direction. Little kitty witty, here you go. This is chicken. Nolan. Here, Nolan. There you go. Okay, the kitties have been fed. Delicious. Now this is the one that we're going to put into the soup, and so I just want to make sure there's bits of it throughout. And while we're not doing too much, we are going to do a little bit. There we go. That is going to be found and flavorful and just really add some decadence, which I don't think is the right word, but that's okay. Now, I wonder if you are watching this live right now, what is your favorite ingredients to put in chicken noodle soup? You might be able to add a comment, no idea, but if you are, we'll take a look and we will let you know what we think of your ideas, and maybe we'll even do some of them. Here we go, chicken is in, and that is delicious. Go ahead and give that a quick stir. Very nice, very nice. It is building up a lot of pressure in there, even when we don't want it to. But that's okay, we're good. Now this chicken, we do want to have it sitting on the side. Perhaps we will come up with a more decisive decision later. Otherwise, what we'll do is we will cut this, and this could be 3 or even 4 portions, but today we're only making 2 portions, so cutting one of these and layering it on top of each bowl of soup is going to be sublime. I'm very excited. It's going to be too much food, but leftovers are always amazing, and I'm very excited, very, very excited. Thank you. Okay, next up, we are on to the potatoes. Let's keep that going. So let's take a look at our onions. These onions are looking very well. We're getting that great brown on them. This is good, very good. Gonna keep that going just a little bit longer. Finish up that brown on all the sides. Very much a little bit more opaque, and that is on its way. Next up, we need to clean our potatoes. So I'm going to take these into the strainer, and I have that right. Yeah, we have these beautiful strainers. They are perfect, especially for a round bowl of potatoes just like this. Perfect. These potatoes are ready to be hitting into here. We're going to pour those in. Very nice. And now we're going to toss the potatoes and onions. And now that we're tossing the potatoes and the onions, we're going to do two things. Thing one, we're going to add in the rest of our butter. This is probably about a third or even a fourth of a stick of butter. And it's a lot of butter, I know, but we're adding a lot of different ingredients, and it's really going to help meld them together, and it's going to thicken up a little bit as well. We're also going to add in more ground pepper. This is, imagine you're making mashed potatoes. It's a lot like that, except we're not as cheesy. I mean, I don't know that we're going to add any cheese for that matter, nor any milk, but the more I think about it, the more I'm thinking maybe. Oh, that looks so good. And some salt. It's a very slow salt shaker, but I like it to come out slower than faster, so that's good. Next up, we're going to give this some tossing. We're going to give it the butter the melting. We're going to let those flavors start to melt together. Very nice indeed. Okay. Wonderful, wonderful. Yes, you can really see them starting to glisten as they get coated, and I'm just loving the way these look. It's very nice indeed. And now we're going to preheat the oven, and since we're cooking this video for presentation in America, unfortunately, specifically the United States, we unfortunately have to give you these temperatures in Fahrenheit. And today we will be baking at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. So we'll go ahead and get that started. There we go. Now for those of you in the rest of the world, we will use our handy dandy Google to give us the correct answer, which we all know is the correct answer. Hey Google, what is 350 degrees Fahrenheit in Celsius?
350 degrees Fahrenheit is equal to 176.667 degrees Celsius.
There you have it. So 167 or so degrees Celsius, and you are on your way. And there we go. We're getting that all very nice, coated. And now you're asking, but what about the celery, the carrots? And you're absolutely right. It's time to get those added in here. And we're going to go ahead and lift those up with our hands because they're nice and big portions, so we don't have to worry so much. There we go. Very nice. Beautiful. And still saving the rest of those green onion to top it later at the end. Now we're going to give this a toss. And at this point, I think it's worth noting that that entire cube of butter has now just kind of dissolved into the coating. There's nothing left really on the pan. And so it's kind of nice. You think it's a lot of butter at first, but it really goes not very far. So it was a good decision. And now we have this delicious plate. I don't think I'm going to get close to eating half of this plate of potatoes, but I will sure try. It's going to be very delicious. Thank you. Okay, next up, we've got these very well coated, And now we must do the next step, which is to bake them. So we're going to give this a minute on the fryer. And realistically, you could also leave this up here, but I just want it to be more even, and I think the oven's going to give us the best even temperature. And so we're going to do it that way. And so next up, we've got these chickens that we also need to set aside. One option would be to stick them on the pan, and I think that is what we're going to do. We're going to cook them in here. And so we're going to go ahead and do that right, not now, probably closer to the end. Yeah, I think maybe closer to the end will be best for this, simply so that way they aren't overcooking and drying out, but that way they get heated up nicely right towards the end of our cooking today, wherever this morning, wherever in time you are at. Though this is recorded live, so right now it's currently 5:33 in this part of the world. Okay, next up, we are going to grab our plate, and this plate is very useful. It is how we're going to be storing our chicken for later, and we're going to set that there, and set that there, and store that in the fridge / microwave. Wonderful, wonderful. I don't know that I'd recommend storing it in the fridge at this point. So what we want to do is, you notice when we cut the chicken, it created so much juice. And as Lizzo would say, there's nothing better than juice. So we're going to put that juice right on top of our potatoes. Really just, delicious. And before I forget, we also need to add in a little bit more garlic. There we go. Set that there. And another toss. The next part of our cooking today is actually probably the easiest and hardest part. It's the spaghetti itself, or excuse me, the noodles themselves. Hi Pippi. Hi there. She smells the chicken juice, and no, you are not allowed on that one. We're still using that, sweetie. Okay, and voila. And hi there, Pippi. Oh, would you like to say hello to the world? Hello world, my name is Pippi. I am a beautiful little kitty and I want to eat chicken. Mwah. Yes. Yes. I don't get it. I don't. There we go. And back to washing my hands, because now I have cat feces on my hand, as those paws do go in the litter box. But I don't particularly care to eat cat feces today. I do reckon that cleaning with the tongue makes it better, but I can't imagine it's as good as washing your hands with soap and water for 20 seconds. So, without any further scientific evidence, I will continue washing my hands after picking up kitties and cooking. Okay, this is doing well. This is doing well. We are doing well. It's time to put these up. We do not need any more of our onions today and our celery. We have used that to its max. And now we must create the most perfect noodle. And I'm not going to guarantee it's going to be very perfect. In fact, I guarantee it won't be. But we are going to do our best job, and that's all that we can do. I do reckon it is a time for more soda. Oh, bubbles. Bubbles, bubbles, bubbles. delicious. And that got me thinking, have you ever made, there's this dish, it's delicious, it's called pulled pork, and it's, you make it in a crock pot is usually the best way. Quick recipe for you is, it's about 8 hours in a crock pot with 1 can of Dr. Pepper, or any other soda that's dark for that matter. And when you put that in there for the whole day, when you come back it pulls apart easily. It's delicious, it's tasty, add your favorite barbecue sauce, and it's simple. I'd highly recommend it. So, Pippi, she's back in the shop. Down girl, please, down. Thank you. I'm going to take this over here, and I'm going to grab a small bowl. And we're going to use this just to set this on the side. Oh, there we are. Very nice. Very nice. Okay. And now we're going to use this for our noodles. So just a quick rinse will get us started. What I love about this cutting board is it's double-sided, and so I just wanted to rinse off the bulk of the mess, and now I can flip it over and use the other side and be happy and content with that and clean the counter a little bit better later. Okay, so with that, we can now start preparing our dough for the noodles, and we're going to do that in our KitchenAid, which just makes things so much simpler. So before we do that, though, I'd like to get this transferred to the oven, so we're going to give it a quick toss. Those smell delicious. Ah, but I didn't finish my story and my thought. My thought was simply this. With the consideration that today's theme is about chicken noodle soup with a soda on the side, I think we might need to add our side of soda. And this is where this becomes a little more pertinent, I suspect. And so let's add in about a cup of soda, just enough to fill the bottom layer. Oh, there we go. A little on the other side. And so what's going to happen here is this sugar is going to sweeten. It's going to add a lot of good flavor, and it's really just going to make this next level. And perhaps this isn't more to your taste, but it is to my taste. It's going to be a little bit caramely. It's going to be a little bit different. And realistically, it's just like adding a glaze to your potatoes. And I highly recommend you do it. So we're going to do that. We're going to let that get to a good temperature. First give them a good toss, and then we'll give them another toss once it starts to thicken up a little bit more, and then we'll put it in the oven to finish cooking. Beautiful. Beautiful indeed. Okay, next up, we're going back over here to our Instant Pot to give it one more stir. There we are. And I want to find out how the flavor is doing here. I see good amounts of soup, I see good amounts of seasoning, but I don't know what the flavor is. So we're going to grab ourselves a good tasting spoon. There we go. Very difficult to get at this time, but I've got it. Oh my gosh, that is wonderful, and there's so many rich tones in there from the vegetables, and it's just very, very nice. I'm very happy with what it's at. I don't feel that I need to add any more salt or pepper at this time, especially not any more salt. I think the broth itself came with a lot of salt already added in, and so adding more would be a bad decision. Otherwise, I think this is very delicious. I'm thinking perhaps maybe a dash of pepper might go a long way here. So let's go ahead and add in a little bit more ground pepper. And that is good. Oh, Pippi, I don't know if I am okay with this, so I'm going to be okay with it if you follow my instructions. Pippi, down. Down, girl. Good girl. See, this is just chicken, and I don't mind. So what she'll do is she'll lick it for a minute or two, and then her brother will come by, and they'll say, that was delicious, and they will both have a little bit, and it'll be good. So we'll let that happen. They'll be done, and then we won't need to worry about them hopping on the counter anymore. There we go. Next step. So this is working. This is good. Want to give that a quick stir. Very nice. Okay, and moving forward. That is a lot of pressure. There we go. Okay, so we've been going for about 40 minutes in there. I'm very happy with where it's at. I think I'd like more of the flavor to come really resonance. Specifically noting the, excuse me, my belches, excuse me. I'd like the flavor from the peppers to really come out and give it just a tad more spice. And so I know in another 30, 40 minutes we're really going to start seeing that. And that's about the time that our potatoes will be done. Excuse me, Pippi, please do not get into the garbage. And next up, we are going to move on. Our cats are done over here, so we can move this around. And we're done with that. Rinse our hands off. And moving forward. Okay, so for our noodle recipe, we're just going to follow the most basic noodle recipe we can find online. Typically, it's going to be an egg and some flour. In fact, you don't really need a recipe, you just mix the two together. But I like to get started with a recipe from Google, as she's always available. Hey Google, what is a recipe for homemade noodles? Very nice.
Sure, I've got a recipe called Grandma's Noodles 2 from All Recipes.
Grandma.
Does that sound good?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Would you like to start with ingredients or instructions?
Ingredients, please.
There are 5 ingredients. You can ask for the next ingredient or skip to the instructions. The first ingredient is 1 egg, beaten.
Ah, we are starting with a beaten egg. Okay. It is important to note that immediately after making this decision, I realized I had taken my egg and I had placed it on a dish I was using with cooked food, and therefore I had tainted that. So unfortunately, cannot use that one anymore. As the problem actually with eggs is that the outside is where the disease actually is. And so it's very important to recognize that this is just like raw meat. So you do need to be very careful, especially if you're using a lot of eggs, or you're not using a reliable source of eggs. So we're going to crack that on a flat surface. That always works best for me. We're going to drop that into our KitchenAid, and we're going to go ahead and give that a whisk. There we go. Off into the trash with you. Oopsie daisy, what was I thinking? That goes in the compost bin. I can fix that very quickly. Booyah. And it's now in the compost bin. But my hands are now filthy with egg, so I must wash them again. Hey Google, next ingredient.
The second ingredient is 1/2 teaspoon salt.
Oh, that's so simple. But you know, today I think we're going to skip on salt. Well, so many reasons. There's just plenty of salt in our dish. There's no reason to add salt to our noodles. Hey Google, next ingredient.
2 tablespoons milk.
Oh, that's interesting. That's very interesting, and I like it. I think it's a great difference that we wouldn't normally see. So I'm going to go ahead and start by grabbing my whisk. There's our whisk. And then we're going to grab 2 tablespoons of milk. And we're just going to go ahead and mix that together. And I like the milk because the milk just creates this kind of layering of flavor and creamy, and like it's going to make it light and fluffy. So I think that was a very good decision by Grandma, and so good job on you, Grandma from Google. All right, next up we're going to grab a tablespoon, and again I'm out of tablespoons. Oh no, I must use a real tablespoon measuring cup. They do exist, I do believe it. I don't usually use them, but I have one. And we're gonna shake the milk, add in our 2 tablespoons, and say, hey Google, what's the next ingredient? Okay Google, what's the next ingredient?
1 cup sifted all-purpose flour.
Ah, simple, very simple. Hey Google, what's the next ingredient?
1/2 teaspoon baking powder optional. That's it. Let me know when you're ready to start.
That's a very interesting choice. We're going to pass on the optional baking powder. It's just not necessary. You may ask, why follow a recipe if you're just going to throw half the ingredients out the window? I think there's something important about understanding why you're doing it and learning as you learn more about cooking. And for me, I don't need my dough to rise. I don't want it to get fluffy. I'm not looking for a noodle that needs any baking powder in it, so that's just a no-no for me. The salt is already there, my flavors. So I already know my soup, I already know what I'm doing, and therefore I'm not going to be doing those 2 items. But the more you learn about cooking, the more you watch cooking shows and cooking endeavors, the more you will know when you start cooking your own dishes. And so it is best to follow recipes from the beginning. As you learn more, you can feel more confident in taking your own decisions and decisive action. So let's continue whisking our ingredients over here. They are looking very nice and fluffy. These are the type of eggs I would eat if I was eating a very delicious breakfast of fluffy eggs. Fluffy eggs are one of my favorites. We're going to put this over here. I'm going to recognize that this is a little too close for comfort. We're going to move that out of the way. We're going to grab 1 cup of flour and continue. It is important to note that this needs a turn. It's looking very good. We're actually seeing that start to bubble, starting to thicken up. I'm going to grab this spoon instead of my normal. There we go. That thickening is starting to happen. Very happy with the way this is looking. Very happy with the way it's smelling, that sweetness, that savory. It's very nice. I need to learn more about the word savory. I like it as a word, but I'm not sure how it works. Especially because I have this seasoning savory and it's good, but I want to know more about it. So if you know more about the word savory, please tell us in the comments and we'd be happy to learn with you and learn more about the word savory so I can use it more accurately when I'm cooking. There we go. Oh, that is so delicious. Oh, I cannot wait to eat that. Oh, my goodness. That is so good. So we're going to go ahead and let that sit right there. We're done with our pepper and our salt. And probably for the day, we'll set them right there and move this over here. Okay, perfect. Next up, we need 1 cup of flour. And we're moving over quickly to our cup. There it is. Now, this should be plenty of noodles. As I mentioned, we're only making 2 servings, so I'm not really concerned. And if I have leftover dough, say you're making 1 serving, or you're making a big batch and you have tons of leftover dough, well, you can freeze it, you can refrigerate it. We typically refrigerate it and use it within the next 2 weeks, and that is just a quick and easy way to go. So I highly recommend that if you have leftover. In fact, I have some leftover elephant ear dough that I've been using, and that dough is just fabulous. You pull it out, you throw it through this exact same device that you're going to use for your noodles, and then you have beautiful elephant ears in your deep fryer or even on a frying pan. Although I personally use a deep fryer, it's just a lot easier that way. Here we are, 1 cup flour. And let's go ahead and start the mixing there. I'm debating whether or not this mixing hook was I don't think it's the right decision, to be honest with you. There's just not enough dough to really make it worth the while. We're going to use it anyway. I don't know if it's going to form a dough ball. Pippi, please, it's very hot up here. Yes, it's very hot, madam. I know. Well, this is going to take a minute, so Pippi, you can have some idea. Let's go ahead and set this aside here. And I think we'll take a quick minute or 2 cat break. There we go. Hello. Hi. What's up with you? Did you want to go up top? Look at this beautiful little cutie. Oh. You want to look inside? We are getting a bit of a dough ball forming. That's very good. So I guess we'll just let it keep going and see what happens. I really do think this is going to need to be meshed by hand. And so I'm going to be pulling it out after this in a minute and then just continuing it by hand. I do love using the mixer, but on a small portion like this, it gets a bit stuck, I suppose. But sometimes it can get cloggy and it doesn't finish mixing it as well as you do by hand. Okay, next up, I'm going to give you the next place of action. Would you like this one, or would you like this one? You choose. From me, wherever you look is where you're going. Up there? Okay. Here you go, Vicky. It's okay. There goes. Cats on the roof. They like looking down, looking up. So I like putting them up high. And it works. It's coming along okay. As I mentioned, it's just I need to get in there with hands. So I'm going to wash my hands and we're going to get back in there. Voila! Additional lights! What? I guess we're okay. Okay. Moving forward, I'd like to introduce you to another shot. This is the beauty, the masterpiece, and the rival of none other, the Lion Queen. Okay, she's showing us her booty. Pippi! Pippi! Hello, Pippi! No, she's interested in something else. There she is. Okay, putting that back down. Actually, go ahead and quickly get that quick swapper. There we go. 1 and 2. Are you okay, baby girl? Are you okay? She might have something in her stomach. Okay, are you doing alright over there, madam? We back online? Beautiful. Clicking that button and hitting that masterpiece right and there. For you. Okay. Next, we're going to start our dough. It did a decent job. I'm not upset. As I said, I wasn't expecting much, and I'm not upset here. This is about as good as I would have expected it to get. So we're going to go ahead and drop that here on a pan. There we go. And we'll finish this by hand. There we are. Okay, I'm going to set this down, lock that in place, and we'll come back to it in a minute. Okay, now let's see what we can do with this dough here. It is getting better indeed. I think we still have a lot of excess flour in here. And so I might end up adding just like a teaspoon or two of water just to really hold it together. Although it's actually turning out better than I would have expected, to be honest. So that's good. Getting that indeed. There we go. Now when you work with larger dough balls, this becomes less of an issue, or more moist dough balls, it's less of an issue with the KitchenAid. But on these smaller batches, I do find this to be quite common. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're looking at how are you going to make it. Perhaps with more foresight and more thought, I would have probably just done this by hand from the beginning, starting with a little volcano, dropping it in from the top, as you normally see in those cooking maniac pros doing the shows. Not intentionally rhyming, I swear. That was quite hysterical, actually. All right, there we go. So we're going to go ahead and keep eating that for a little bit. Though before I go any further, I really do need to give this another tosser. Okay. There we go. Oh, that is starting to caramelize very nicely at the bottom. But I might have added just a hair too much liquid, so it's taking a little bit longer than I would have suspected to continue. But that's okay. I'm totally okay with this. Very nice indeed. Quick scratchy on my nosy. Quick scratchy on my nosy, I do say, would be very nice. I'll go ahead and get that with that spoon. There we go. Very nice. Okay, and voila. The spoon. Oh, just there. Little squishy. Squishy. And it's gone now. Okay, next up. Continue the kneading process until the nicer ball forms that doesn't feel like it has as many flour pockets. You can really start to see the texture forming into more of a dough-like texture. There we go. Unbelievably, we've actually just hit the hour mark on our pasta, which means we've probably been doing this live stream for nearly an hour and a half now, which I find remarkable. I was watching they call it podcast, they're these things online where people talk for a couple hours, and I was just blown away. They got to the end and they're like, oh my gosh, it's been 2.5 hours, and that's how I feel today. We're in the kitchen, we're having fun, we're making this wonderful dish, and it is just flying by. Here we go. There we are. Okay. And next up, I'm going to bring out the rolling pin. And that's really just going to help us break this down a little bit easier. Get this a little bit flatter. There we are. You might need more. You may need some more flour at this point if it's too sticky. Really, there's so many variables, it's hard to say exactly what you might need. So, here we go. But for me, it's still rather dry. There's a little bit of tack to it, but not that much. And I'd like there to be a little bit more tack, really. But I'm starting to see that perfect dough forming, and I'm very happy with what I'm seeing. Go. Just one step at a time, eh? One step at a time. Okay, another fold. And I think after that, we'll actually call that about good, actually. Unbelievably. Now, this is going to spread into very, very large pieces. And so, don't be surprised when you start with a small batch like this and you think, oh, there might not be enough dough, but you'll probably have way more than enough. So I'd like to give you a quick sample of what that's going to look like. So we're going to go over here, grabbing our KitchenAid and going to our automatic. Now they do have some manual versions of this. I've used the manual. It wasn't as easy as I thought it would be, and so I have just found a preference for the automatic version. Booyah! There we go. And over here you can set your setting. Always start on the largest setting. I've got it on an 8 right now. I'm going to break off a piece from the side here. There we go, very nice. And you could flatten this with your rolling pin, but since I'm starting on such a large setting, I don't see that being nearly as much of an issue. So I'm going to give it a quick balling. And the reason I want to ball it first is so that I can get a more round texture. So once I get a nice round, and I don't feel like there's too many edges or cracks, I can now start the mixer, get a nice roll, And here we go. Sorry, I guess I should have done it a little bit more than that. There we go. So now we're going to throw that through. And not bad, not bad. I'm going to do it a second time and then fold it on half to try and get rid of some of these edges. You see the edges where they're tearing? If you start with a more circular, flatter piece before you throw it in, it won't tear like that. And so it's very important to prevent tearing that you go very slowly, but we don't actually mind tearing as much, so we're actually going to just keep going 2 at a time at first, and then we only go 1 at a time, so we just went to 6, and now we're at 4. There we go. And now we're going to do 4 twice. There we go. With a little bit of ply in the, as it goes through, it's not like very perfect, so you kind of want to go through once at a time and taking it twice at a time as you get to the lower levels. Now I'm a fan of a noodle that is very thin, and so I'm going all the way down, either to 1 or maybe even 0. Now at this stage I'm at a 2, and at 2 I want to add just a layer there to really help bring it together. There we go. There we go. It's a little inconsistent at the end, but honestly you can't even notice after you're done. I'll throw it through a second time, and now I'm feeling a little bit more happy with the way this is looking. Going down another setting, down to 1. There we go. And next up is going to be the noodle process. And for our noodles, there are so many ways to make noodles. We're heading 0 now, so this is our 0 level. Now this is going to be a thinner noodle. I consider it closer to like, I wouldn't call it angel hair. It's definitely not angel hair, but it's still thinner than most pasta. So that's nice for me. Next up, but again, personal preference, and how you do it is all up to you. So now we're going to set that down here, and we're going to grab our spaghetti cutter. So there's 2. I'm going to be using the ruffle cut side simply because the ruffles allow more flavor and sauce to stick to the outside of the noodle, and that is exactly what I'm going for. So we're going to cut off this edge right there, and that can be used again. And coming over to the other side, doing the exact same. There we go. And actually, I guess we can get... There we go, nice. Not bad at all, not bad at all. And we're going to continue doing that all the way across. This is not going to be perfect in any way, but it will taste delicious. So I'm not concerned in the slightest. There are definitely much better machines for this, but my hand is going to have to do today. So I'm going to grab that, and on the shows they do the fancy little twirl. I'm not so good with the twirl, but there we are. That will do. And like, sure, there's a fancy twirl. For all of you who wanted me to do a fancy twirl, I've done it for you. You're welcome. In fact, it's so fancy, we'll even get a nice close-up shot of it. Look at the fancy, yeah, that's a little bright. It's a little bright, madam. Let's take that down. Boop. There we go. And the noodles. Yeah, not bad. Not bad at all. I could probably be better with the camera work, but whatever. Okay, next up. Let's go ahead and get that in focus. Very nice. And come back over here. Now, while we've got our first batch of noodles ready, we should give this another stir. So, I'm going to grab this here. We're going to give that a quick toss. Very nice. And I'm really happy with how this is turning out. Now, at this point, we are going to go ahead and put it in the oven. Yes, I'm happy with that. Let me give you a quick look at what we're seeing here. You'll see that the potatoes are indeed coming along nicely. There they are. Yeah, that's a nice shot. It's a nice shot indeed. Wow, I might actually do this professionally. One day, maybe. Okay, so let's go set that down. There we go. Can you imagine that? Sir Walter Cambridge, a videographer. That would be the day. Love to see that. Me out of the kitchen. Okay, but now we got this ready. I think we're going to go ahead and grab some foil. Give it a nice foiling on top. And then we will be able to bake it. There we are. Indeed, we are going to have to do 2 pieces of foil, and that's okay. You know what? I do believe this is going to keep in a lot of moisture, more so than I thought before, and because of that, I am okay with putting our chicken in right now. So we're going to go ahead and slice that right there, slice that right there, and call that a day. There we go. And I'm going to set that over here. Okay. Next up, I'm going to set this on there and grab my kitty. There she is. And I also have another one right here. This is the safe method. Remember, this is very hot. I cannot express how hot this is and how much you need to be safe. It is just dangerous, so please be careful. But what we've done here is we are sealing in the moisture. And by sealing in the moisture, we are going to trap it. We're going to keep it cooking, caramelizing, bubbling, moist, tender. It's not going to dry out. Typically in an oven, things get very dry. And sometimes that's okay, but most of the time that's not. And in this case, it's definitely not. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and put that on there as well. Mittens are back on. And now we can finish the wrapping process. Wonderful. Okay. Like that, we are done. And it goes into the oven. Maybe I will do the sides just ever so slightly better. There we go. Very heavy. And on the center rack, oh no, that was not ideal. Probably best to pull your rack out first. I apologize. I am not the perfect man. I know that might be surprising to some of you, but I'm just human, as we all are. There we go. Perfection. And beautiful. Now, the reason to use the center rack rather than, say, the top rack is because we want even circulation of air around. We want the temperature to be very well maintained, and putting it in the center is definitely going to help us do that. The other thing that we have on our side is that moisture inside. There was still a little layer of liquid at the bottom, and because of that, it's going to create a very moist atmosphere, and that is what's going to allow the potatoes to cook more evenly. And there will be a little bit of probably charring at the bottom, I suspect. We'll have to see how that turns out. In fact, if there isn't charring at the bottom, I will definitely be putting it on high after we get out, maybe even throwing the foil off, doing a quick broil, just to give us something more to look at, something that looks a little bit better, tastes a little bit better, and just gives some more crunch. So that is something to look forward to soon. Continuing on, we are back to our eggs. Excuse me. We are back to our pasta. Now, as we are working on our pasta, it is now time we are going to boil the pasta. And we could perhaps just put them in there, but that's not to my like. I would rather cook the noodles and then put them in there, mostly because we're working with our egg and I just want to be a little bit safer. And this is just, it is hot, but I don't want to risk that it doesn't cook all the way through or that the noodles become soggy. And so what we're going to do is cook the noodles very quickly, and we're going to set them aside, and we're ready to add them to the soup. We will pick them up, we will set them in, and they will heat back up and be delicious and not overcooked and just how we want them. So this is one set of noodles. I think we need a lot more of noodles, so we're going to go ahead and do that. And let's get started. grabbing another ball. And we're going to follow the same steps as before. This is going to be very simple, but not too difficult. Grabbing out to our 8, grabbing our rolling pin, doing this a little bit better than before. Every time is a learning lesson. I do say so myself. Turn it on and let it rip. There we go. And fold in half. Let it go. Let it go. I'm just kidding. I'm sure you don't want me singing. That would be wretched. My apologies. Okay, and there it goes again. Very nice, very nice. Liking the way that's turning out. We'll go one more time and move on to our next difficulty. Moving it down to a 6 actually this time. Very nice. Now, if your dough, as it's going through, starts to ripple or malfunction in any way, I highly recommend you just simply start over. Do not try to salvage bad mistakes. It's just, you can fold it in half, and if that doesn't fix it, if it's too thin in the center, or the edges are too thick, then just start over, create a ball, roll it out again. It's not very difficult, and it was simply you just went too small, too thin, too fast. And so it's very important to make sure you do these sizes correctly. Otherwise, I could show you what it would look like, but I'd prefer not to have to do this twice, so we will not today. But you see that now that I'm on the 3, I'm running it through a second time, just so when I go down to a 2, we're not having that issue. There we go. Moving down to 2. I cannot remember for the life of me whether I went to 1 or 0 last time. I believe we actually went to 1. I wanted to go to 0, but I felt that 0 would actually be a little too thin. Oh, well, I can actually show you a little bit. This isn't too bad. If we run it through again, it'll fix this one. But I can show you a little bit of what I was talking about. You see there's these ripples in here, and you can kind of see them, kind of, probably not as well. But the ripples, they are caused by going just too fast. So when we go through again, that'll make them a little bit more even, and then it won't be nearly as bad. So it just, that's just going too fast as you go down through the levels. So now we are good, and we can cut ourselves some more noodles. Again, going with the riffles, cutting off the edge, which will be recycled, beautiful, and creating ourselves some, there we go, 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 5, and 6, and 7. Not bad, I do say. Not bad, I do say. There we go. Okay. Now with that, I'm not going to lie to you, I don't think the nesting is my methodology. I think nesting works for some people. It doesn't work for me, so I'm not going to nest. Next up, we're going to grab ourselves a pot of hot water. Here is our pot, and this is our hot water. There we go. I'm going to put this on a small burner, and we're going to heat that up. Now, I'm a huge fan of seasoning the noodles when they boil. If you're using like a noodle from the store. In this case, it's not really necessary because these noodles are pretty moist as is. We're just kind of cooking them very quickly to actually cook them. And so, if you are using store-bought noodles, I highly recommend you salt your water. I also highly recommend that you are using some seasoning in there. Italian seasonings is always a good choice. You could also put that into your dough if you wanted to. So for instance, if I wanted to right now, what I could do is I could laminate the dough. So let me give you an example of what that looks like. We'll do that on our next batch. This is going to need a minute to get up to temperature. That is silly. That is silly, 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 Cambridge. Don't do that. And don't talk to yourself. It's crazy. Okay, very nice. Okay, moving on. We're going to grab this and pull it aside. I will try the nesting option again. Kind of. But what we're going to do is we're going to grab ourselves a ball of dough, and I'm going to show you what nesting looks like. Excuse me, about what layering these looks like with a little bit of seasoning in the middle. And you can actually do this with real leaves as well. Like you could grab spinach leaves, if you have some, and you could even put some spinach into the middle of your noodle. It's very, very interesting. So once again, we'll start at the high layer of 8. Put that to a quick spinning, not thin enough. There we go. And I want to say voila, but it wasn't what it was. But there it goes. Now we're going to do that again. Give that a quick fold. Another go. And now we're going to lower it down again, down to 7. Da. And again, down to 5. Sure, we'll skip a little bit. Probably not safe to do that, but impatience, it gets the best of us all, don't it? Okay, now you have this layer here, and what we're going to do is what you saw us do in the previous, and what we're going to do is we're going to grab some basil and some oregano, and we're going to take the basil and just sprinkle it on half, and we're going to take the oregano and sprinkle this on half. Very nice. As I mentioned, you can use pretty much any assortment of leaves that really just fits your fancy. And so we fold that in half. And now, when it goes through, it's going to be in the center, and it'll actually start to become like lightly see-through. And that is going to allow you to see it as it goes through. You can start to see it already, but when I go one more, you'll really start to see it in there. And let me see. Can you see that? No, maybe not. We'll go ahead and maybe right there, perhaps, no, maybe not. Let's make it a little bit thinner. Let's go just down one more, and as it gets thinner, you're really going to start to see those seasonings really becoming quite visible. So, we're going to do that one more time. And now, I would not be surprised if you can't, I'd be surprised if you can't see that. Let's try once more. It's very visible to the naked eye, let's put it that way. And perhaps it helps that I have some backlighting on me. Like that probably really helps. If I look from your angle, I see it though. Perhaps the noodle is just too bright. Yeah, so you can see that. But yeah, it's gorgeous, it looks really good. It's going to add a little bit of flavor to your noodle. And we're going to go through this one more time. And muy bueno. Okay. Now we can cut this one up, and we're going to have one noodle with that Italian seasoning, and we're going to have one noodle that's a little plain, and perhaps we can do some other varieties of noodles. You can do a garlic noodle, you could do pretty much anything. At this point, you are now in charge of what your noodles taste like, and you can do anything. Unlike store-bought noodles that are just flour, you can really give this an enhanced flavor that no one else has. Okay, our water is coming up to boil. That's great. I'm going to go ahead and cut these noodles up. Do-do-do. 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 Okay. These noodles are getting away from me. I think I maybe went a little too thin on this one, as the noodles are starting to ripple very easily. So I think next time I'll do them just a hair thicker. They will still turn out very well, but just a little uneven here and there. Alright, very nice. Okay, next up, we're going to turn that heat up just a hair. We're really starting to see the boiling happening. And we're going to take this nest and break it up a little bit. So as I said, I am not a nester. I am not a nester, I apologize. Nests are not me. Nests, just not me. Okay, now we go in here. We're going to want to grab these very quickly and very effectively. So I highly recommend you get something like this with some edges to pick the noodles up very easily. We're also going to need a bowl to put those cooked noodles in. So I've grabbed ourselves a bowl, and that will be very useful as well. Now I'm going to simply drape my noodles into here, and this will make sure that I feel comfortable putting them in and that they're going to not stick together, which is honestly a concern of mine. There we go. Very nice, and very, very nice. Okay, so into the pot. Give them a quick stir. Make sure they're all separated easily. There we go, very good. And these really don't need very long. 90 seconds is kind of all it takes. And so once that's done, we'll set them aside, and that's it. You have cooked yourself your noodles, you have cooked yourself your soup, and you have cooked yourself your potatoes and chicken. And now the next step is really just to combine them all together. And so we're going to go ahead and grab these noodles up here. I should have counted, but this is okay. They are starting to float, which is a good indication, and they are looking very well noodled. Very well noodled. Alright, very nice. Next up, we're going to grab our next batch of noodles. I'm going to try this one with the nesting approach and give it the whole swirl. And you know, it does seem to be working, but I just don't trust it. Maybe you trust it more than I do, but like that one seems like it's a little stuck together more than I would have appreciated, but hopefully it'll come apart. Okay, very nice, very nice. Okay. And this process is just rinse and repeat, and once you have all your noodles, you're good to go. So right here, I see one portion of noodles done. I'm doing 2 portions of noodles, then the rest of this will be saved for later. And so I'm going to just do probably maybe 2 or 3 more portions here, and we're going to call that a day. So very nice. We've done a great job, and these potatoes will be done soon. I think the best method for these potatoes specifically, I've never actually cooked these baby potatoes, so I'm very excited to see how they turn out. But most potatoes take about an hour to an hour and a half in the oven, but these are so small, they shouldn't take very long. Plus we cooked them on the stove for quite a while. They're probably very tender at this point. So as soon as I have all of this ready, all I'm going to do is take the biggest potato I can find, cut it in half, take a bite of it, make sure it tastes good, it's tender, it's easy to eat, it doesn't have any like hard spots, it cuts very smoothly, and that's when I know my potatoes are done and it's time to put it all together, plate it, and enjoy. So we're almost there. I'm very excited. Cannot wait to eat. So yes, here we go. And these look just about done. Okay, with that, pull those out. I am curious though, how have this noodle turned? Very much a noodle. That is very much a noodle. I'm very, very pleased with that. Very nice. I cannot wait to try these. Now, I do think that if you were to add a little bit of salt, it would bring out the flavor of the seasoning. So probably add a dash of salt and maybe not adding salt to one of the ingredients while you're cooking. might be a alternative to make the flavor enhanced profile come out from these noodles, but otherwise they are absolutely fabulous. So yeah, I maybe should have added the dash of salt suggested. My apologies to anybody who did not do that, but now you know. So it might be a good time to add it. You could even add it to the water if you wanted to, but there you have it. Oh, Pipsqueak, did you want down? Oh, Daddy can help you. Come here, baby girl. Yes, it's okay. Let me help. Let's see. This is going to be a little bit complicated, but watch. I made it. Oh, you're okay, baby girl. Oh, you need a hug. You need a hug. We could always use a hug. Let go. Bright lights. It reminds me of that new song by The Weeknd, Blinding Lights. Beautiful song. Highly recommend it. Not sponsored, I swear. If I was, that'd be amazing. Okay, and here we are. These noodles look wonderful. And I lost almost all of them in the first go. Wow. I don't know that there's a proper method to prevent these from slipping or burning or anything for that matter, but I guess maybe one at a time if you have to. Not ideal, but if you have to, do what you need to save your noodles. Okay. Very much having the difficulty with these noodles. Okay, and one, and a two, and last but not least, a little boy. This is the one I'd like to taste. The Italian seasonings were really good, really great addition. It really enhanced that flavor profile. So I suspect we should do that again. Here we go. Now one trick you might need is if you use a little too much dough, it can get very long very quickly. And so I can already tell that this is going to be a very, very long noodle. And while I love a long noodle, it is very important that we make it manageable. And a long noodle is not always manageable. So until you have more skills in that area, I highly recommend you just simply take the dough and cut it in half. So we're just going to do that, and now we have no worries. It means no worries for the rest of your days. Yeah, if you know what that is, you're a cool kid, because that's a great song. Okay, and we're going for the next fold, and there it goes. And look at this, is only half of the dough, and it's already at the same length as it was previously. It's quite amazing how quickly it stretches. And we just hit 2, so we're going to go again. It's going to get wider with every pass. And then we go to 1, and we're going to see it get just a hair wider. This could be a wider noodle if you wanted it to be, and to easily do that, all you have to do is fold it in half again and send it right back through, and now it's going to push that wider. And so now you can make larger noodles, like you're making lasagna noodles. There's so many options available to you. Highly recommend you use a little bit of creativity in your cooking style. There we go. One is done. But I think, as I mentioned before, we do want to add a little bit more oregano and some basil. Just bring it out of the dark ages. There we go. And another one. Very nice. Nothing particular here. This is just kind of for fun, right? So no need to be crazy. But we're going to go ahead and do the other one at the same time. So that was a bad decision. I skipped all the way from where I left off, straight on down. And now we need to... It is very tasty. Someone asked, was it really as tasty as it looked? And yes, it was. It is so getting tasty in here. And I promise you, it's going to get even better. There we go. Next up. If you have any questions you'd like to ask, we are live right now, and we are happy to take your questions and continue our cooking process. Or if you have any ideas, I mean, we are all just budding chefs here. I'm not anything fancy. I'm not some special, skilled, high-trained guy, but I do like to have fun. So if you have ideas, feel free to share them with us today in studio, and we would be happy to incorporate them. You are part of the show when we are getting tasty live. All right, so we've got these. They look great. We're folding them in half. We're folding them in half. There we go. And now we're going to send them back through. Water is looking good. Might need to add more water here if I was going to do more noodles, but I don't think I'm going to have to worry about it, as this is going to be my last batch of noodles. There we go. There we go. And that looks fabulous. We'll do that one more time with this one over here. That one got a little bit messy at the end. I don't know if you could see how messy that got, but it's okay. See, when it came out fine. We go through for the second pass, and it makes that noodle look absolutely perfect. There we go. Next up, we're going to turn that off. I'm going to cut off the edges as we always have. Oopsie daisy. Please don't mind that one of these is going to have a straight edge, but that's okay. I used the wrong side of this spinny thing. But yeah, so these are nice. They have both straight and curly edges, which is very useful. So we are, as I mentioned, using the curly edge to collect more flavor from our soup. But if you are into a more classic straight edge noodle, you are welcome to be a straight edge noodle yourself. But I am a curly edge. So there we go. Very nice. And continuing down with the cuts. There we go. And another cut. Oopsie daisy. There we go. Continuing. I do wonder if adding the seasonings has caused this to bunch up a little bit more frequently than previously, but I cannot say. I am not a food scientist, and unfortunately none of those are here in studio today. But that's okay. There we go. There we kind of go. And we're gonna call that a day. We just need to fix that guy. And yeah, there we go. That's fine. This is fine. All dough is reusable, so I'm not worried about it in the slightest. Next up, we're going to cut this one. And as I mentioned, it is very much bunching up, which I do suspect is due to the seasoning. So perhaps using no seasoning could give you a more perfect looking noodle. But if you're just in it for the flavor, then this is probably the way to go. So you get that yummy, delicious flavor. And I'm wondering, I do wonder if I did this kind of folded thing that I've seen on the telly, and I folded and cut, if it would be... That did seem to work better, but is it still separating? Does it separate easily? Not bad, not bad. I don't know if I recommend this method, but it might be worth pursuing or trying out. So that did seem to work a little bit better. There we go. Okay, so our last batch of noodles is ready to go into the pot, and we are putting it in right now. There we go. Give that a quick stir. And our noodles are cooking. Very nice. Very nice. And we'll let those go for about 90 seconds. The water did cool off very much as soon as I put that in there, so I suspect it'll go for a little bit longer. So we'll go ahead and let that sit until they start floating and are looking a little bit. You'll notice the difference between dough and noodle is just very slight, but if you get used to it, you'll notice that there's a difference between when it's cooked into a noodle versus being just a dough. So moving on over here, I'm going to grab myself a plastic baggie. This is how we are going to save the rest of our dough, but before I do, I want to recombine it back into a ball, and this will be saved for future noodles, probably later this week. Maybe that, what was I saying earlier today? I said Alfredo, that's right. We were going to do a chicken Alfredo, and these would be great for that. Do a chicken fettuccine Alfredo. I do like a fettuccine. Now, the difference between what we're doing and a fettuccine is just that you'd use normally a flatter edge, same noodle, just flatter. So realistically, I would do the same thing as I did before, which is adding the ripple, simply because it's going to be able to collect more of that sauce. So when you have that yummy, yummy fettuccine sauce, you're actually able to enjoy it a lot more. So we'll go ahead and put that in the fridge. We'll start cleaning up our work surfaces, and then we are ready to cook. Put our foods together into its final form and give it the great old-fashioned taste test. There we go. Okay. Da 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 da. Now you may wonder, how do you cook the noodles? And so, how do you clean the noodle maker? And realistically, you don't need to. As long as you're not using something gross or slimy, you don't really need to. One option, though, I have found that works really well, if you come over here, is what's called a paper towel. I find them very common here, and while they're not exactly ideal for, environmental reasons, but they are not bad. And so, for that reason, we're going to use them, in this case, just for the cleaning. So it just slides right on through, just like a noodle would. Maybe. There we go. And it goes through, gives the nice rolling sensation. We'll do it on both sides. And after that, you've really done all that you can do to clean this off, because you're not really working with something that's very dirty. You're really just working with some noodle, and you plan to cook the noodle anyway. Or if you're working with, say, the elephant ears we're making, they're going to get deep fried. Also, that napkin can now be decomposed and eaten by worms, so it's a circle of life. And yeah, so that was that. And next, we're going to go put this up. There we go. And put this back in. There it goes. Grab the rest of our noodles, turn that off, and they look fabulous. They really do. I think these are going to turn out absolutely delicious in the soup. I am very excited. There we go. I apologize if you're hearing a dog barking. Our neighbors have a dog, and we suspect that they have left, and the dog is unfortunately home alone, and that does stink. So my apologies for any audio interference or any poor will towards said doggy. I wish we could do something about it, but unfortunately dogs at home are very lonely. So please, if you have dogs, try to find some way to keep them engaged, or stay at home. I mean, right now is a great time. Working from home is obviously great for dogs. Taking dogs to work is also very nice. Kitties, same thing. Cats love us being home right now. I usually work from home myself. Obviously, cooking is a full-time job, and therefore I spend a lot of time with my kitties, and they get to enjoy the cooking process, so that's nice. Next up, we've got our noodles. We are done with this pan. We are continuing the cooking scenario here, so we've got this for that, although I think we'll probably, I don't know, we'll keep it up. And then we're going to go ahead and put this up. It's just nice to keep your work area clean as you go, so you're not feeling overwhelmed at the time you're done cooking, and that way you can really enjoy your food. So we've been going here for about 1 hour and 40 minutes on the slow cooker. I'm going to give it another taste, as it's been 1 hour since then. And that's, I mean, this is so exciting. I'm so excited to eat this. We'll go ahead and put up this oil. Salt and pepper goes there. These two go right there. And those are going to continue to be used. And we are done with all of this. There these go. And next step is to put these two up. There we go. And we're going to taste first our soup, and then we're going to taste our potatoes, and then we will combine into our plated dish. So let's go ahead and grab a spoon. You know what? We are going to be using a ladle for the soup, so I think I might as well get a ladle out. This is the ladle I will be using, and this is the soup bowl I will be using right here. So we're going to use the soup bowl, and we're going to pull this closer. Very nice. Done with you, sir. Okay. Give that a stir. I feel what might be something stuck on the bottom. Most of it has floated to the top, but I just want to give it a quick scrape if there is anything kind of stuck down there. There we go. And this is what I like to call my trial bowl. This is where things start to come together and you really want to know, is it good? Is there anything else I can do? And so I'm going to take these two noodles right to there. I'm going to grab just a small amount of soup and going in. There we go. Beautiful. Perfect. And I will be eating today with a spoon. There we go. Oh my gosh. Waff, waff. Mm. Yes, that is exactly what I was looking for. Mmm. Oh. I'm very glad I didn't salt the noodle, actually, now that I'm tasting it together. It was a good decision, yeah. I'm not regretting it at all. The flavors have really come out. You can really taste the bell pepper, you can really taste the celery and the onion, and it just has this really, really nice vegetable, earthy tone. Mmm. That is so good. That is so good. I can't wait to have chicken on top of this. And the potato, I'm thinking of putting potatoes in the bottom of the bowl, just for even more like a soupy, potatoey soup. Oh, so good. Mmm. Wow. Oh. Okay, it's ready. That's all I have to say. Let's keep going. Next up is time for the plating, although we do need to test our potatoes in the oven, so let's give those a quick try. Make sure they're good as well. I'm sure they are. Oh, this pan is heavy. Very heavy pan. Oh, and we lost a little bit of foil at the bottom. Got that out before it burns. Turn that off. There we go. And next up, we've got the potatoes. Woo-wee! Now that is fine and dandy. That is indeed. Oh my goodness. Oh, that turned out very well. Okay. Go ahead and set that there. And we're going to go ahead and give this a quick... Ah, yes. Yes, the viewers at home, you would like to see it up close. Let me give you a quick show of what we're looking at here. There you go. You can see the chicken is coming out nicely. The potatoes as well. It's very good. Very good indeed. Now, I did say that we would potentially want to turn this into a more crispy top, and I'm not opposed to that still. I'm still very open to that. And so what I'm going to do, grab the third and final cutting board that is in my collection, same brand, and we're going to set our chicken on there, which should be nice and toasted. And to keep it warm, we're going to actually stick it in the microwave, which will keep it a little bit warmer. There we go. And now we're going to try out one of these taters. Big tater, where are you? And we'll try out one of these carrots as well. Carrot, the celery, the potato choice. Wow, they're all about the same size. Ah, there we go. That's a big one. Okay. Let's see how we did. The carrot cuts nicely, but it still has just a little bit of a bite to it. It's going to be very, very good. Let's see the celery. Oh, no, not my celery. Also very good celery, very good celery. And the potato. Cuts very clean. So hot, but so much flavor. I think it's really going to mix well, especially if you put the soup on top of the potato. It's going to make it even better. Like, so good. Otherwise, the other option I would recommend would potentially be, if you did have the potatoes by themselves, I would highly recommend adding like a cheddar cheese or even a Parmesan on top, and that would really just increase the internal flavor, because right now the internals are very, it's a potato, but when you have the soup, it'll pour in, it'll really impact the internals, and the outside has just got this really great crusting on the outside of the skin. No, that's very good indeed. All right, so because we've decided that we're going to use these potatoes in our soup, I will not be crusting the top. There is an option here where even with my leftover potatoes, you could add that cheese I mentioned, you could throw it under the broiler, or you could just put it back in the oven at a higher temperature and give it a nice crispy coating, because all you're doing is just adding that crispiness, the meltiness of the cheese. But in this case, we're going to do this way. So follow along, we're going to grab another bowl. We have our 2 bowls, and we have our 2 spoons. Very nice. And we are going to start with the potatoes. So I'm going to go ahead and grab these here. Just enough to fill the bottom of the bowl. Nothing too crazy. Make sure to get a good variety of potatoes. Some of the gold ones. We want to add in a carrot or 2. I'm going to go with a smaller carrot or 2. Yeah, and there. And some celery and some onion. And there we go. I've got a nice layering on the bottom of this plate. And I will give you a quick look at what that looks like. Here we go. This is the bottom of the bowl. Pull out. And rotate, because we want it to be pretty. There you go. Very nice. You can see the potatoes really look nice. So does all the other vegetables coming together very nicely. Okay. So, for our next layer in the bowl, let's do both bowls simultaneously, shall we? So let me get more in here. And la la, la la la. Very nice. Put another big cat. Some more celery. Some more of that juice even. Oh, that juice. Our juice here look delicious. And we all know there's a little bit of soda on the side. Shh, no one else needs to know. There we go. Next up, we are going to layer in our noodles. So we're going to go ahead and just grab these. And grab these with your hand if your hands are clean. Going to put a little bit of each type in there. There we go. Oh, there we go. Maybe very nice and sticky noodles. Nothing to be complaining about here. Give that a big wrapper there. And nice little set of noodles there. And okay, they are very, very sticky. We'll go ahead and put just a couple more back in this bowl here. Okay, now we have very nice sets of bowls, and the noodles are there. What are you thinking? What about the chicken? This is chicken noodle soup. And my goodness, I tell you, it will be chicken noodle soup if it's the last thing I do. We grab our chicken. We're going to set this in here. Okay. And I need a big knife. There we are. And this is where I'm going to add this back in. Very nice. Those turned out very well. I would recommend using a fork at this stage to help with the cutting process. Go. It's okay if it falls apart. That's a good thing, really. It's going to make it very good inside the soup. The cuts would have been preferred, but this is okay. I'm not upset. In fact, I think I'll just eat this bite. Wow. Wow. It's been a few weeks since I've had chicken, and I have to say this tastes like I was eating at a fine restaurant, and I am very pleased. Very pleased. Okay. I will layer in the chicken. I would normally make this look a little prettier, but the chicken didn't turn out as pretty. I didn't cut correctly, and I apologize. Anyone cringing at home for my poor cutting skills, my dearest apologies. There we are. Perhaps this one will turn out nicer. We'll see. There we go. 1 and 2 and 3. I don't think this is turning out as bad, but maybe this is better. Maybe I have done a decenter job this time. Perhaps I needed to let it sit for a little bit longer. I'm not entirely certain, but I will get better in the future, and I am sure of that. So, there we go. Perfect. These look very nice indeed. So, next up is to layer this through, right across the chicken. And see, if you were serving more people, you would just layer this in multiple bowls, and maybe make it prettier if you are in a restaurant, obviously. But we are not. We are just enjoying this for ourselves. Now, the chicken, look at these kitties. The kitties know that there's chicken nearby. They said, "I smell the chick. Please. Please, monsieur, may I have some?" Yes, you may, kids. Okay. There you go. And Nolan is very shy, so I have to feed him separately. Alright, so this is looking lovely, absolutely lovely. It is now time that we pour the soup over the bowls. In fact, I think it is so lovely, I will show you a quick take of what that looks like. Wow. Very nice. Okay, so to do this right, we're going to grab our the green onions here on top. Grab those on top. So these ones are going to get floated. They will be instantly cooked by the soup. And that cooking will just make them a little less pungent. There we go. Give that a stir. And grab the first bowl. Now this is going to get very, very hot, so please be very careful. Ah, yes. In fact, I almost need a bigger bowl. There's so much soup and vegetables and food in here. Just grabbing as much liquid as I can. Really enhance this, but there's just so much to enjoy. I'm very excited. Oh, yes. And now we're reaching the brim. There we go. One bowl, masterpiece, if I do say so myself. And our next bowl, which we're going to drop in. And there we have it. 2 bowls of chicken noodle soup. But we are not done yet, are we? Are we there? Okay. We're going to set this aside. Click cancel. Give that a quick turn. The let that sit to enjoy. We need to top it with our green onion for that effect. That is just perfect. That's perfect plating, and I love it. I love it. Okay, so let me give you a quick tour of what that looks like. Once and twice, and turn, and my apologies. That goes the other way. And turn. We get it. Let's take a look at that. There they are. They are gorgeous, are they not? That is what I call a good chicken noodle soup. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so now that we've wrapped up our chicken noodle soup adventure, there's only one thing left to do. Grab your cup. A few ice cubes is always nice. Clean up your mess and pour yourself a little soda on the side. This is fabulous. I am more happy than I have been all day. Most deaf. There we are. And a sip. A cheers. And most importantly, a first bite. Mmm. Oh my goodness, that is just wonderful flavor. That is just wonderful all the way through. I'm going to grab a bite of chicken here. These are little big bites, so perhaps you might want to cut them smaller for yourself. If you use a chicken that's a little more tender, it might fall apart a little bit better, or if you use a slow cooker with all the chicken, it will fall apart easily. Mmm. Mmm. That is so good. Now, the noodles, I'm realizing you need a fork as well, don't you? Yes. A fork will definitely allow us to grab those noodles for a good old spin. Mm. That is very nice. Let's grab a potato at the bottom. Oh, the cat. The cat. Oh my gosh, I've been looking forward to this cat all day. Mmm. Oh, it's so good. Even dipping the cat back in. Mmm. Like a little baby potato. Mmm. Wow. I just want to thank you all for joining us today. It has been very good and tasty today with chicken noodle soup, a soda on the side, and I am very pleased with the way this has turned out. There are so many different ways, and today we just kind of free-handed it, and it turned out wonderful, and I am sure you can do the same at home. So once again, thank you for joining us. Gettin Tasty. I'm your host, Cambridge, and we will see you next time in our next live cooking segment. And I would like to say that please feel free to interact even with this video, even after it's gone live. We'd be happy to answer questions, get your suggestions for future ideas. And yes, we look forward to that. Give it a big old thumbs up. We like the likes. And we are sponsored by Chandler Media and Design. They are a video and live streaming. They've got this all set up for us. They did a wonderful job and we really appreciate that. So thank you guys so much again for tuning in. Until next time, getting tasty.